One other thing that I definitely would have predicted in 2004 is that DC United would have a wild playoff game. So, as always, I have a couple of sources for this one talking about 2004 Eastern Conference Final. I will be covering probably a lot more than just the Eastern Conference Final here, but got a lot of my stuff from Wikipedia, Transfer Market, and there was a video that was actually really helpful in terms of the game in question that we're talking about today from MLS called "If We Had VAR, It Would Have Been 8v8: DC United versus New England Revolution Playoff Moments." Fantastic video. Highly recommend you check it out. I honestly I can't remember if I talked a bit more about the video later on. I think I did, but it was really cool. They got a bunch of the players that were in there to kind of give some quotes and thoughts on the game while showing some clips from it too. So highly recommend checking it out. So this story is meant to be focused on 2004 Eastern Conference Finals, and we will get to that. But before we do that, we really need to cover this regular season finish because, quite frankly, I'm not sure there has been a closer battle for the Shield in MLS history. So let's start 5 match days before the end of the season. So match day 26. It's as tight a race for the Shield as I've quite frankly ever seen. The top two are the Wiz and the Crew, who will be the top two fighting for the title. However, 10th place, which is last in 2004 MLS, is only 14 points away from first. To put this into perspective, the point gap between first and 10th the season prior was 30 points. There are 8 teams currently with 3 games. Sorry, there are 8 teams within 3 games of the Shield at this point in the season, with 5 games left. However, by match day 29, there will only be 2 teams still eligible for the title. The Crew were on 48 points with an 8-goal difference, while the Wiz were on 46 points with a 7-goal difference. The Crew were in the driver's seat, but one slip up and the Wiz could easily swoop in and steal the title. The final match day saw the Crew at the Rapids and the Wiz at home against the Galaxy. A Josh Wolf 23rd minute goal saw the Wiz win their match, meaning that the Crew had to at least get a result in order to have a chance. Unfortunately for the Crew, they got a 1-1 draw, meaning that the final standings saw Wiz 49 points and 8-goal difference, with the Crew on 49 points and an 8-goal difference. We are completely deadlocked. So you would think that goal difference is the second criteria to decide the champion after points, obviously. But this is MLS after all, so of course it's not. Head-to-head matchup is the next decider. So the question is, what were the results between the two teams? Match day 3 saw a 1-0 Wiz win at home. Match day 11 saw a 2-2 draw in Columbus. And match day 22 saw a 2-1 win for the Crew at home, meaning that we are again deadlocked. As mentioned, goal difference is the next criteria, which, as mentioned before, is also tied, meaning we're on to criteria number 4, number of goals scored. This would be the deciding criteria, but even this was really close. It finished with the Crew on 40 goals, while the Wiz only had 38, meaning that the Crew won the Shield by scoring 2 more goals than the Wiz that season. Simply incredible, simply MLS. So now we can, and also, if you were listening before, that's where the Crew scarf comes from, creating the Shield there. So now let's actually get into the real story that we're here for today. The playoffs were set with the following matchups in round 1. Columbus versus New England, DC versus the Metro, KC versus San Jose, and Galaxy versus Colorado. New England held on to their first leg victory to upset the Supporter Shield champions, Columbus. DC handled the Metro with ease. The Galaxy overturned first leg loss to move on 2-1 on aggregate. Now I skipped the KC San Jose series because we need a deeper dive. I know we're not supposed to talk about this one either, but it was too good to pass up. So leg 1 saw the Quakes easily take care of business at home 2-0, with Darrow and Weibel scoring the goals. Leg 2 saw one of the most wild playoff games yet. KC managed to pull level by the 48th minute through a Stevenson goal and a Ching own goal. Then in stoppage time, Jack Jewsbury hits a shot from outside of the box to complete the comeback and send the Wiz to the Western Conference Finals. 92nd minute winner to overturn the first leg deficit is unreal. I believe Andrew touched on this a little bit, but that is the Wiz's 3-0 comeback after going down 2-0 in the first leg. All right, so back on track. There's no more distractions. We're talking about the 2004 Eastern Conference Finals now. So the matchup is between the Revs and DC. As a reminder, games are one leg from this point on in the playoffs. So this was winner takes all. And if everything was tied after extra time, that meant penalties. Maybe that's foreshadowing. A star-studded affair was set. Twellman, Shaw Joseph, and a young Clint Dempsey were up against the vets of Ben Olsen, Mike Petke, and Jaime Moreno. There's a great video that I mentioned earlier that had the players discussing the game, some clips as well. Definitely check it out. One of the clips, one clip that the players said set the tone of the game right away was Shaw Joseph going studs up to Jaime Moreno's groin area 2 minutes into the game. That earned him a yellow card, by the way. And not long after that, Josh Gross got some revenge with a late kick into Shawry's ankle, which somehow didn't get a card. But you get the idea. These teams were here for blood. The players talked about how there could have been 3 red cards just in the beginning stages of the game. I mean, Pat Noonan said it best. It's the title of the video. If we had VAR, it would have been 8v8. In the 11th minute, amongst all the chaos and reckless challenges, Aleko Eskandarian finds a loose ball, dribbles to right outside of the box, and rifles one to the left of Matt Reese to give DC the early advantage. In no time, Twellman finds the end of a cross and volleys it past MLS legend Nick Rimando to put everything back level. Oh, you thought the chaos was done for a bit? Absolutely not. 21st minute, just 4 minutes after Twellman's equalizer, Jaime Moreno curls one in from the left side of the box, catching Matt Reese off guard and putting DC back in front. Matt takes credit for that goal getting by, saying that considering where Jaime was on the field, he was playing the cross, but Jaime hit a perfect shot that curled just inside the left post. Definitely go check out that video. It was a pretty wild goal. So finally, we get a bit of a break, but there's still more before halftime. In the 44th minute, the Revs whip in a cross, which hits the hand of Brian Carroll just inside the box, giving the Revs a pen and a chance to level right before the half. Steve Ralston stepped up, but was up against one of the greats just starting their career. Rimando dove to his left, the same direction as the shot by Ralston. The ball misses Rimando's outstretched hand, but hits the post. Deflection bounces right back towards the field, but the diving Rimando is in the way, and it hits off of the back of Rimando and rolls in. Extremely unlucky for him. Literally, if he guessed the wrong way, it probably would have stayed out. This whole stream of events had to have been extremely deflating for DC, especially as it came right before halftime. But the second half begins, and if it's anything like the first half, we're in for a treat. In the 67th minute, DC would get their lead back after Christian Gomez headed home the cross from Ernie Stewart. 2 minutes after the goal, Gomez would make way right after that for one of the biggest names in MLS history, a 15-year-old Freddie Adu. DC would manage to hold the lead going well late into the game. However, New England would not go out easily. A corner in the 85th. Ralston delivers a deep ball to the back post, which saw 2 Revs players completely unmarked, one of which was Pat Noonan, who beat Rimando to the ball to head it home and tie the game right before stoppage time. Full time ends 3-3, but we're not done yet. Extra time provided no goals, which meant we were off to penalties. 2 greats of the game in net, so this was not going to be easy for either team. The first pen was from everyone's favorite, Ben Olsen. However, it turns out that he is also a favorite of Matt Reese, as he read him very well and saved Olsen's PK headed down the middle. First for New England was Ralston, who just barely scored the PK earlier in the game. His shot hits the frame again, this time the crossbar, but luckily for Nick, does not fall on the goal this time, meaning both first takes were misses. The next 5 takers were all makes, which included a PK from Reese himself and a PK from 15-year-old Freddie Adu. Talk about nerves of steel being 15 and taking a playoff game penalty. I'm sure you know why I specified the next five scoring. Because with New England's fourth kick, Jay Heaps saw his shot get saved fantastically by Nick Rimando. Match point to DC. Score the pen and it's off to the MLS Cup final. Nobody better to take the pen as well as Jaime Moreno stepped up to the spot. A pretty poor penalty saw Reese guess the right way and save the shot, meaning if New England scored, we were off to PK overtime. And score they did through Shalry Joseph. Brian Carroll stepped up and hit a beautiful pen into the left side of the netting to give DC the advantage. Up for New England was the young Clint Dempsey. Dempsey hits a very savable pen to the right side, and Rimando guesses right to save it and send DC to the final. RFK Stadium erupted. The stands were shaking. This game was insanely wild, but job's not done. There's still one more game to go, and they were up against Supporter Shield runners-up KC Wiz, who beat the Galaxy 2-0 in the Western Conference Finals. The final was another great game, which started early in the 6th minute with a goal from Jose Burciaga from way downtown. This had to be 20 plus yards out at least, and he rifled it into the bottom right corner, beating Rimando. Eskandarian would not let it stay that way for too long, as he turned a defender and laced one in to level the score. And not long after that, Eskandarian says, how about another? As he doubles his goal tally and doubles the lead just 4 minutes after his first. The goal came after a long throw in, put a KC defender under pressure, who then booted the ball off Eskandarian, allowing him to pick it up and go one-on-one with Bo Oshanii. In fairness, on the replay, and the announcers said the same thing as well, the ball does appear to come off Eskandarian's hand, which was raised seemingly to protect himself from the kick. This means that the goal should not have counted, and we'll have to wait and see if that plays an impact by the end of the game. But wouldn't you know it, just 3 minutes after that, DC found their third goal. Ernie Stewart dribbled into the box, squares the ball looking to find Eskandarian for his hat trick. However, Alex Zotinka, a KC defender, says, I'm having none of that, and gets one for himself, just in the wrong net. The score would remain going into halftime, meaning DC was in a really good spot to see this out and become champions. Dima Kovalenko, however, is a phenomenal sport and wanted to make this a more even game. And in the 57th minute, he channeled his inner Nick Rimando, handballing Conradinho's shot off the line. Josh Wolf would then take care of the subsequent penalty, meaning KC was only down 1 now and up a man. KC would have more chances throughout the match, including a great chance missed by Davy Arnaud. However, DC would bunker down and see it out to win their 4th MLS Cup. Now you can go back to the Eskandarian second goal and question how important that no call was, considering that they would be level if disallowed. I'm sure if you ask KC fans about this game and the ref, they'd likely get furious. However, in the end, and in the history books, it's DC's name that is written next to the title of MLS Cup champions.
My friend, first off, my favorite part about doing these is going deeper, because you're sitting there and you're like, what are we going to talk about in this Eastern Conference Finals? You're like, oh, I need to talk about all of it because it all is so sick, right? That's what this is all about. Secondly, that end of the year, like down to the 5th goal, 5th tiebreaker, is one of my favorite stories that you've told, because it's exact. I had to have a conversation with somebody yesterday, or not yesterday, a couple weeks ago, who told me MLS doesn't have storylines because there's no promotion relegation. And I just laughed at him and I didn't even bother dealing with it. But like, that's exactly what I'm talking about, where it's like people will miss out on so many crazy endings and stories like that simply because they think that they're better than the league, which is, we won't go down that route. But finally, you're missing a key part of our friend Aleko Eskandarian's handball.
Which part would that be?
The Jimmy Conrad part. Unless I missed it.
Was Jimmy the one that kicked it, or are you talking about the red card?
No. So let me go ahead and pull up this last little bit, and I'll share it with you because I think with what you covered, doing another episode on it wouldn't make any sense because it would be so short. Um, However, we talked. You already covered, right? Um, Let me pull up my notes here. Yeah. So you covered all the way, firing top corner, controversy strikes, right? 4 minutes later, Comrade attempts to clear the ball from the back line, and Eskandarian jumps and blocks the ball with his hand, right? Everybody
Yes.
stops, they go on, he scores. Flash forward 7 years from that day. Our favorite manager Eno, is on Twitter taking part in what they called, if I remember correctly, let me get the proper phrasing of it, the Jimmy Conrad roast on Twitter. Great comments were coming in. Everybody's making fun of Jimmy Conrad. And then a familiar name pops into the chat with a very important message. Ever since the 2004 MLS Cup, I've been waiting for Jimmy to retire to get this off my chest. It was a handball, Jimmy. It was Aleko Eskandarian owning up to the goal that should not have been, but he still kept the cup. That's all it was.
That's
That's where
fantastic.
the story originally had come from, because the handball is the handball. But 7 years later, he comes down the line and is like, hey, just want to let you know, you were right. And Jimmy had a good laugh about it. Um, they had a good little chuckle, but that was the whole point of that whole story there, which is fantastic. It's such a good one. Um, More often. So I got it from a DC United Bleacher Report, article, right? And they go, more often than not, important calls have gone against United ever since. Is it karma? Perhaps. And to that I go, you guys got your karma back in the 2012 Eastern Conference semifinals. So stop crying. Anyways,
Wow, a little salt in that one, huh?
we'll get to that. Don't You better get popcorn. You better get a nice comfortable chair, because when we get to that story, it's gonna be bad.
I'm looking forward to it.